Hello, everyone's Forest Focus as Nottingham Forest prepare to face Arsenal at the City Ground tonight. We know Forest haven't been in great form of late, but what about Arsenal? Can they overcome injuries, attack, and bounce back from that surprise defeat to West Ham at the weekend? Joining me to discuss it all is Arsenal fan Tom Marshall-Bailey. Tom, welcome back to the show. I'm going to ask how you are, but we were talking before I hit record, so I sort of know the answer to this. How are you?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm probably better now than I was on Saturday. I actually felt quite numb around the Liverpool result on Sunday. To be honest, I'd kind of made my peace when the transfer window closed and we hadn't signed anyone that this probably wasn't going to be our season, especially with the cup results as well. So yeah, it's a weird feeling for Arsenal fans at the minute, but I'm feeling slightly better now than I was at about 5 o'clock on Saturday evening. That's for sure.
It's a funny season for you guys because obviously you went in with feeling like you were either favourites or second favourites with City. City finally blow up, and you think, all right, this is our season, and then it's just not happened for a lot of clubs, has it? Liverpool, the only team I feel have actually been good. I mean, how are you feeling about the season, especially currently? How are you feeling about it all now? Is it one of regret that it's blown up, or not?
Yeah, I almost think it's slightly mad that we've managed to even make half a title race of it, to be honest, because I don't think we've played well or found anywhere near the levels that we're capable of, but bar a little run, which, funnily enough, was probably when we played you at the Emirates. I think that might have been one of our best performances of the season, actually. There've been so many games where it's been like a really turgid watch. Like, the football hasn't been brilliant. I think the sort of the first season we challenged and fell short at the final hurdle to City because it was such a surprise. I think the fan base were just completely energized by the Zinchenko and Jesus coming in and giving us a lift, and it felt like a new brand of football and a really exciting style of football. That season Martinelli and Ødegaard were unplayable. Saka was probably a slightly lesser light that season, but that season. Last season felt like we became a bit more consistent, less prone to kind of defensive lapses. I think defensively we looked a lot more secure last season, but it almost feels like we've lent into that a bit too much this season, and we've kind of prioritized defensive structure and solidity over attacking freedom. And you ask any Arsenal fan prior to the injuries that we've suffered, and obviously that's compounded the position we're in, but even prior to that, on Saturday, for example, I don't want any hard luck stories. West Ham were worthy winners on Saturday, and I looked at our 11 and okay, you had Mikel Merino as a bit of a square peg in a round hole up front, but realistically, that was only missing two players from possibly being an 11 that you'd say, if it was the Champions League final tomorrow, that would be the 11 you'd pick, and that's Havertz and Saka. Mileage varies for Arsenal fans on how much they rate Kai Havertz. So it's a weird position to be in now, because I think even with the Champions League draw, the fact that if we even get, most people would expect us to get past PSV, but it doesn't feel like a gimme anymore. But even if we do, we've got one of Real or Atletico Madrid waiting for us in the quarterfinals. And realistically, with the attacking options we've got at the moment, unless we are a team that can just keep clean sheets and win games 1-0, I think there's a feeling of emptiness around the Arsenal fan base, of the Champions League feeling like it's probably going to be too far out of our reach, and also Liverpool too far in front now, that we're in this weird position where we're not close enough to challenge them for the title, but we're also too far away. Unless something goes really badly wrong in the next few weeks, we're probably a little bit too far away from the kind of the group of clubs that you guys are a part of, who've got that stimulant of trying to get in the Champions League. And just feels like we're in a little bit of limbo now, and that's not the best position to be in as a fan base, but also as players. It will impact them for sure, knowing that they're so far adrift now of the title race. But as I say, barring a complete and utter collapse, we're probably safely entrenched in the top 4 or 5 if that's what it works out to be.
We'll get into lineups, and I'll ask Tom about some specific names. But just in general, Arsenal had the latter Wenger years, certainly. They'd lose one game, they'd lose 2, they'd lose 3. The season's over in very quick bursts, normally around, I guess, April time. It's been different recently, but what kind of reaction are you expecting from the team this time, especially with the options available at hand in attack? Do you think they can rally against Forest or not?
I'm pretty pessimistic. I think when we spoke prior to the game at the Emirates, I think Martin Odegaard had returned from injury, and I was sort of enthused by the prospect of him returning and him and Saka linking up. Obviously, that's where the first goal of the game came from that day. And in fairness, I don't think Forest gave a true account of themselves that day. And probably at the time, it might have felt like, right, okay, Forest season might level out now, but full credit to you guys for the season that you've had. It's been amazing and refreshing as well to see a team kind of upset the apple cart and be in and around the top 4 or 5 teams. It's probably to some clubs felt like there's a bit of a glass ceiling in this league, and that you can probably get so high, but then then the only way is kind of down from there. And we've seen numerous examples of that down the years. But I kind of feel a little bit conflicted about tomorrow's game, because I feel pessimistic in the sense that I think Forest will be really up for it. You've clearly got something to play for. And, despite Arteta and Arsenal players insisting that we have, I think, there's probably more at stake from this game for you, if I'm being completely honest. I fully expect Liverpool to win tomorrow night, even against a Newcastle team that have performed well themselves this season. The other half of me, though, is kind of actually a little bit, I'm not going to say excited, but I'm actually looking forward to us being away from the Emirates for the next 3 games. I feel like we've had some real low moments in this calendar year at home. We had the Newcastle Cup defeat at home, which was one of those games that both that and the Man United Cup defeat were games that proved that we needed attacking reinforcements even before the injury struck. Missed a hatful of chances, and they were real sucker punch defeats, both of them, and left us feeling like we were last season, where the cups had gone and it was all on the league and the Champions League. And we had the Aston Villa draw, and then we had Saturday, and it's just felt like the kind of the expectation of the crowd. It's got quite antsy in the Emirates. Like once it's got to sort of 20 minutes, half an hour without a breakthrough. And in a weird way, I'm actually looking forward to just being away from that environment for the next few games. I'm sure that'll be put into a soundbite when we go and lose 3 on the bounce away from home. But I'm intrigued to see how we approach tomorrow, because there's not a lot we can do in terms of personnel. The only sort of form of rotation he's got is in the fullback positions. Ben White's back now, so it will be a choice between White and Timber. He won't have that luxury at left back because of Miles Lewis-Skelly's red card at the weekend, so it will be Calafiori on the left-hand side. Jorginho or Partey at the base. He's tended to favour Thomas Partey, so I would imagine it would be him again. But that's the kind of the only midfield rotation he's got. And then up front, it's a choice realistically of if he's going to play Raheem Sterling or Merino. And that's the position we're in. We've got a young lad, Nathan Butler-Deji, on the bench, who, by all accounts, was due to move to Rotherham until it became clear that we didn't have enough striker options, and that kind of sums up where we're at. The idea that a football club trying to tackle Liverpool who have got the best player in the world, in my opinion, in their team at the moment. The idea that we're trying to go toe-to-toe with somebody who's on the cusp of moving to Rotherham feels, like you're trying to climb Everest in a pair of flip-flops, basically. It's all down to the last 2 transfer windows, and that's left us in a position now where, like I say, most fans are feeling quite empty at the moment, and as a result, I think Forest are primed to capitalise tomorrow night. I think under the lights, City ground, it's got all the ingredients of a game that I don't think Arsenal are equipped to deal with at the moment. From my point of view, unfortunately.
There's no major police incident going on outside your window.
Yeah, I apologise for that.
That's all right.
I am recording from the centre of Manchester, so I apologise for the goings on outside the window.
That's fine. Right, I'll ask Tom about a couple of names that he's just referenced there. But before we do that, just a reminder, all this round of games has been televised. So you can watch this one at the Nav, at the Trent Navigation. Do get down there. It's on at both the outdoor screens and the screens throughout the pub. So you can get your food there as well. Barbecue, pizza, kitchen, earlier food as well from the menu. And you can get cask ales from £4. So enjoy the game at the Nav, and thanks for their backing as ever. Right, let me ask you about a couple of names there then. I mean, the big one from Forest point of view, I guess, an Arsenal view is Marino versus Sterling, because I guess 1 year he's been declared fit as we record this, which I'm really disappointed about because I was hoping he wasn't going to be, because he's such a talent. But deep down, which option are you hoping that he goes with, Marino or Sterling? Bit of Sophie's choice there, sorry.
Yeah, it's a tough one in the sense that I would have gone with the team that Arteta went with on Saturday. I can't be Captain Hindsight and look back at it now and go, and a lot of Arsenal fans made this point prior to the game, that if it didn't go well, like it at Leicester the week before, Marino is almost a bit more of a wild card option off the bench who can maybe come on and cause a bit of chaos later on in the game. But I think what was clear on Saturday was that it was a midfielder playing up front. He just looked out of place from the first minute, and where the game state of the Leicester game, when he came on, the game was a bit more, Leicester's defence was, probably a bit more fatigued towards the end of the game, not tracking runners from deep into the box, which is what happened for his goal. It felt like it worked as a wildcard option, but I think most of us were kind of intrigued to see it from the start, but it became quite clear that it wasn't going to work for us. The problem is you then turn to the bench, see Sterling there, and you've dropped him from the 11 from the previous week. So you would assume that's going to have a bit of an impact on him. And he came on and made no difference. So do you go with someone who doesn't look like making a difference from the start, and then you've got Marino on the bench as a wildcard option, but the game might have been taken away from you? Or do you go for Marino against the centre-back partnership in Murillo and Milenkovic that, for my money, probably the third best central defensive partnership in the league this season, after Konate and Van Dijk and probably Saliba and Gabriel. Two giants at the back who will relish winning aerial duels, and that's kind of Marino's, sort of key attribute really and trait, is to give us a bit of height, give us a bit of presence in the final third. I don't know if that's something that Murillo and Milenkovic are necessarily going to struggle against. So it's a tough one. I think probably I would opt for Marino just because I think he looks like someone that, who isn't kind of down in the dumps like Sterling is, because when he got withdrawn against Leicester, to see the guy that came on for him score 2 goals probably wouldn't have made him feel great, and he didn't contribute enough in that West Ham defeat to make me think that he'll come in and make a difference. It's a tricky one though, because you can make the argument Trossard as a bit of more of a false nine, might be more of an interesting option down the middle, someone who might pull Murillo and Milenkovic out of position, that type of thing. But I think Trossard looks better from the left-hand side, and I think him and Nwaneri at the moment, while we wait for Saka and Martinelli to return, are needed in those wide positions. So, yeah, somewhat reluctantly, I'll probably just about plump for Marino in the middle.
It is tough, isn't it? I mean, from my point of view, I think I'd be more worried by Trossard because he will pick up pockets of space behind our midfielders. We've had a bit of a weakness there. Marino feels like a matchup, like the West Ham defenders. They're big, they're strong, they're not quick. Ours are big and strong, and one of them's quick. So I would feel more comfortable. But then you look at Sterling. I mean, I'm not being hindsighty. I thought it was a very strange signing because he'd had a couple of lean years. He's the kind of signing I thought he would go abroad, or maybe to, like Rashford's gone to Villa, somewhere where he could be re-energized. So I'm not being hindsight when I say I thought it was going to be a strange one. Are you surprised that it's not worked out, or did you think this would happen?
I've been surprised just how bad he's been. Like I did not expect him to come in and be someone who was going to contribute for us from the start. You know, essentially, he was signed as a sixth forward. You know, after Saka and Havertz were kind of cemented in their positions, Jesus was going through a bit of a barren spell, so had kind of become the secondary centre forward, and then Trossard and Martinelli were sharing game time on the left, and you know, it's a difficult sell, isn't it, to any right winger that we might want to try and sign in the coming years. Is, well, you've got Bukayo Saka in front of you, so you're only going to get so many minutes. The irony is, he's obviously sustained a medium-term injury this season, which has meant that Sterling's had to play a lot more than probably even we anticipated. I think the summer transfer window, though, all of the problems we've had this season stem from that. The allocation of funds to different parts of the pitch didn't make sense to me. You know, if you look at it objectively, like not just an Arsenal fan, but any football fan, if you looked at our team last season, we actually scored more goals than the Invincibles last season, but there's a difference between stats and kind of an eye test. And I think anyone last season who likes football and watches football would have said Arsenal look solid defensively. They've got a pretty decent midfield, but they're lacking a bit of stardust in attack, ultimately, compared to a Liverpool or a City. And what we've done to try and address that in 2 consecutive transfer windows is to add Raheem Sterling on loan. That just doesn't make sense to me. Saturday felt like the kind of chickens coming home to roost to me, like a culmination of the injuries that we've had, the loss of form from some players. Martin Odegaard's having a really, really difficult time of it at the minute, but he hasn't got any kind of deputy. And again, that's a failing on the club that they've not addressed. They let Smith Rowe, Vieira and Nketiah all go last summer. I don't think Arsenal fans were pining for any of them to stay, in all honesty, but I don't think anyone expected that those 3 would go out and a loan deal for Raheem Sterling would be all that we're capable of doing to replace them. So, probably surprised just to how bad he's been, but not, I also didn't expect him to come in and be like a key asset in our team. And unfortunately, he's kind of had to be due to circumstance, really.
I know I've fully tempted fate there by having a whole question burying Sterling in case he scores 2, because he did score 2 against us for Chelsea, I remember, a couple of years ago. But I stand by that he's been a bit of a dud signing. Just lastly, before we let Tom go then, on our preview this morning from a Forest point of view, we always go through our lineups. 2 of us went 4-2-3-1, play both the wingers, retain Gibbs-White as a 10, but also to drop deeper and try and do a job on Rice or Partey and cause a bit of chaos there. The other person said 5 at the back, clog up midfield, play Chris Wood up front, frustrate Arsenal and try and nick it with 20 minutes to go, as we did at Liverpool. Which approach would you kind of rather that we went with, which would benefit Arsenal more, in your opinion?
I really think tomorrow's got all the hallmarks of, probably us dominating the bulk of possession, not doing an awful lot with it, and being prone to the counter attack. And I would, if I were Forest, I'd be really looking at our left-hand side at the minute as an area to try and exploit. That's what West Ham did on Saturday. I think Calafiore's sort of been seen as like a bit of more of a sort of a chaos option than Lewis Skelly. Lewis Skelly a bit more sort of controlled, keeps the ball.
David Luiz was a comparison that I remember reading about Calafiore.
I feel like the jury's still out a little bit on him. Like, there are some aspects of his play I really like, but I think someone like Alanga will really test him. And I think Aina being able to get up on the overlap as well. Obviously, it could well be that Sterling plays down that side. We'll have to wait and see. Trossard's not got the same sort of defensive intensity as a Martinelli, for example. Martinelli's someone who will get back with a fullback and help his own fullback out. We were really exposed down that side. And look, you would hope, from our point of view, that that's something Arteta's looking to address on Wednesday night with this game. But if I were Forest, I'd probably be brave and try and be conservative to a degree, except that probably Arsenal are going to have the majority of the ball, but don't leave the wide men too deep that it's hard then to get out, and you've only got Wood, battling against Saliba and Gabriel. That one of the things I've always liked about those two as a partnership is that Gabriel's the real aggressor. There's not many strikers from a dual kind of point of view get the better of him, and he relishes sort of winning aerial battles, getting in, nipping it in ahead and winning the ball. Sometimes that can be to his detriment a little bit when he gets a bit sort of overly physical with strikers who are a bit more sort of intelligent with their movement and the way that they sort of shield the ball. But I think where Forest have got a real opportunity is in those wide areas and also the kind of the athleticism and running power of a Gibbs White in the middle. Someone like, it's probably a slightly lazy comparison in some respects, but someone like Morgan Rogers feels quite sort of analogous to Gibbs White in the Premier League. And remember the game at Villa Park earlier this season where he was just running through our midfield, and Partey offers us a lot on the ball, but it's increasingly clear that off the ball, you can get round him. That's why Declan Rice almost has to be like a minder to him to be able to sort of offset his physical limitations by being able to be that kind of, that running power through midfield, make interceptions, win the balls, and give sort of Partey the platform to play from there, really. So I think keeping the likes of Gibbs White and Alanga as high up as possible, so they're not, on the edge of their own box when Forest are, turning the ball over. I think that will be key, because I think there's a vulnerability to us right now. You have to be honest in saying that. If Forest are going to, really make that push for the Champions League spots, then, I think tomorrow's an opportunity for you guys to prey on that vulnerability a little bit and be bold and be brave. Recognise that we don't have the firepower right now to be blowing teams away. If we're going to win tomorrow night, it's going to be an edgy, nervy affair. Probably a bit like at the City ground at the start of 2024, I think, for the 2-1 win, Jesus and Saka. I don't anticipate that we're going to go to the City ground tomorrow night and score 2 or 3. Far from it. I think if we were going to win, it's a 1-0, 2-1 kind of game that might have to lean into set pieces, might be that we lean into the defensive structure that we have to help us nick it. But I think Forest right now have probably got more sort of attacking options in your armoury to really threaten us. So looking forward to the game. I think it's got all the sort of hallmarks for a good game. I think of a team that will probably dominate the play and one that will find ways to get through on the counter. So it should be a good one.
I think so. I mean, we've obviously got our own vulnerabilities, but they've been, hopefully, touch wood, they've been away from home and we've been good at home. So we'll see how it plays out. It'll certainly be an interesting one. If you have enjoyed this, do us a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, do consider channel membership or Patreon, or just give us a lovely 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify as ever. We shall be back later tonight as this comes out. We'll be back straight after the game to discuss it in full, and then Thursday with Kelvin Wilson and then a couple of the regulars. 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, so late finish, early start. Do join us that if you can. Tom, thank you very much appreciated.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me, and see you for one of these next season.
Oh yeah, see you for both of these next season. Looking forward to it. At least I know we're not getting relegated. That was always a concern. So it could be worse. It could be worse, certainly. Right. Have a good day, everyone. Enjoy the game tonight, and if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.